Okay guys, so I'm gonna tell you what happened with us. Basically, we've been doing games for many years. I'm a HTML developer. I've worked on many titles. I've worked also for people like Chanel to do their backend, so very demanding people when it comes to it. And Microsoft came to us and asked us to port some of our games on the Windows 8 platform. So I have a desk with 4 computers. I'm like, okay, so now I need to put everything on Windows 8. So we get basically to the first question: was it a good idea to change the OS? So we got the OS and I started installing. Sadly, all my computers are unbuilt and more than 2 years old. And I've discovered a bug in the build 9200 of Windows 8. They inverted the memory for the PCI Express slot. That means if you have 2 PCI Express ports or even one, the second port is the first one. If you only have one graphic card in it and it's in the first port, it will not work. I had one of Microsoft evangelists come home. We stripped the computer. We tried about 40 different hardware situations until I bought the laptop to make it work and installed 32-bit on all the system. So I was like, yeah, this is not good and good. So be aware that if you start developing on Windows 8 and you have older computer, you may have that issue. Other than that, the installation process was relatively fine. So that was good. What I discovered after is you cannot install the dev tool, most of the dev tool for the phone and the platform on the 32-bit system. So I ended up with the entire office ready for development without development tool. So I've tried again many things to install VMs, etc., etc. The only solution was to buy that laptop to be able to actually run the phone. So I've tested many ways to run different software. We've been using Visual Studio 2012, and they also have a very hidden part in it, which is a Windows Visual Studio 2012 for phone, which has a red icon, which works, I'm going to say better for the phone, but that is not easily found when you install it. Personally, I had to go in the installed app, and I saw in the list that this one was installed. Then I could find the executable, then launch it. That saved me a lot of issues, because from that one you can see the phone settings. So very important to look for that when you plug your phone for the first time onto whatever device. Because with this version you can set up your environment and start working. Now, the next big thing I had to learn with the project, they gave me a Surface. I thought it was Windows 8. It's not, it's Windows RT. Now there is a big difference between Windows 8 and Windows RT, and it's very important you guys understand it before you do any work on it. Windows 8 is like a Porsche, and Windows RT is like a Smart with a shell of a Porsche. You cannot install application. I tried to install VLC when I got it. I'm like, cool, I'm going to install VLC, that way I can watch videos. No, you can't install VLC. I discovered that they're actually working right now on an app for VLC for Windows RT. When you look at all the documentation about Windows 8, it's very important to understand that Windows RT is actually the name of that OS. It is not called Windows 8. Microsoft spent a lot of time for not in marketing, but for the sales people to know the difference and be able to explain it in stores. I find that they don't really understand the big difference. They're like, yeah, it's a lighter version of Windows 8. No, it's not. It's like a big phone. It's meant to run an ARM device. You cannot run executable. The processor is not able to process many things. So it's very important to take that into account. If you want, for example, it's good for testing, you won't be able to debug on it, because you won't be able to install the tools. So it's going to be just an eye check. You're going to be like, is it working on the Surface? Yes, I think so. Test, 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 test. Yes, I don't see anything. It's working in the simulator, so I'm going to assume it's going to work. You can't just be like, I need to debug that. No, you can't. It won't let you. And for me, that was, I got very frustrated. Like, a lot of frustration came with the Surface for me, because I wasn't aware of that at first. Then I'm like, well, I'm stupid, it's an ARM device. I should know better, I've done phone stuff. and then it clicked and I read the spec. Windows 8 has about 11,000 libraries you can use to do everything, starting with HTML5 going up to C. Windows RT has about 3,000. So they share 3,000 of the same, and Windows RT has an extra 2,000 that Windows 10 doesn't use. So this is important to know, because that's going to dictate the way you're going to develop on the platform. Now, when you get a laptop and you're like, well, it's time for me to get a new laptop, I guess, and I'm going to develop on the phone, you discover something funny. Most laptops, even if they can have some kind of Hyper-V, doesn't mean it's going to work with Windows 8. That laptop, for example, has the right technical requirement to be able to run the simulator of the phone. It doesn't work. I went into the BIOS, I tried everything, I even flashed the BIOS a couple of times. I was really scared once. Like it's the only 64-bit machine we have, so if I fry the BIOS, basically I have to buy a new one with my money. So the issue is, there is, I don't know what the issue is, but something doesn't communicate right between the dual BIOS and the development platform. Visual Studio kept telling me, no, you can't run the simulator, you don't have the proper processor. I looked in the list, the processor that laptop has is listed, the motherboard is working, everything is on, and yet it doesn't work. Windows 8 on the hardware is very specific about what it likes and what it needs. So this is something to be very aware of. Let's say you have this laptop we got 3 months ago, and it's not a cheap one. I'm pretty sure if you would have went with something else than Sony, same issue. You really have to be aware of that and find the right product for you, so you will be able to develop with not spending cash every day. Now, the next thing I discovered once I finally got my OS working, my platform working, and I knew I had to do HTML5 games, is that everything is based off IE10. Now there is 2 new things about IE10 you need to know before you do anything. The tables are broken. The first cell of a table cannot carry a height whatsoever. It will break the entire string of TD and TR into oblivion. So if you have all code using tables, you're going to have an issue, even if it's in an app, because they use the exact same IE10 inside an app. The second thing you have to be aware is that they went bleeding edge with the viewport. They don't support the regular viewport everybody has been using, Apple, etc. They decided to use the one that's going to be W3C, which means none of the current websites that use the viewport are going to work. If your game are currently using a viewport, it's not going to work. You need to use the @viewport and the MS viewport to set up your CSS, so your HTML is actually going to display, which means they're at the same level with Opera right now on that part. So you have to be very aware of that if you're bringing your current content. It may not work. We had the issue, we had to change many things, we had to recreate CSS. There might be other way around it. For the kind of app we are doing and the complexity of the game we already had coded, we didn't find any simple solution to our problem but redoing the CSS, which is unfortunate. The WinJS platform on Windows 8. Basically, when you develop an app, Windows 8 natively supports HTML5 and JavaScript, and their library is called WinJS. In that, they integrated what they call the grid. It's basically a pre-made layout for you that's going to support all the Windows 8 interaction, all the touches, all the swipe, the multi-touch. So it's very useful. Instead of you having to code everything by hand, you can use the grid. You say this is a box, and you can give it proportion. This box is going to be 1 tile, this box is going to be 3 tile, and this box is going to be 100 pixels. And you're going to say, I can swipe from here to here. And it's going to have that effect. So it's very useful to understand the grid and to use it. I think it's one of the best aspects they created for the apps. The same grid exists on the phone and on Windows 8. In Windows 8 we used it, on the phone we didn't use it because our game didn't work properly on the phone, so we had to minimize the shell work. Since we have to minimize the shell work, we only use the grid on Windows 8. Look into it, there is a lot of information, it's very useful. The issue with WinJS, you don't have access to jQuery, you don't have access to less CSS, to less JS, you don't have access to most of the libraries, they won't work. The main reason for that is a security system they put in place. You can change HTML on the fly. So whenever you have dynamic content, like Ajax, it's not allowed inside an app. Because from the app you have access to the OS level, so if you could change the content on the fly, technically you could change and ask the OS to do things you shouldn't be allowed to, which is what we did somewhat on the phone. I injected, basically, to give you an idea of the phone, the game worked, everything was fine. Except when we send it to certification, it comes back, the back button, it doesn't do what it's meant to. Except I can code the back button on the phone to do the proper thing, because visually it looks like we have more than one page. Technically, we just have one page loading an iframe. Now what I did is that you have the app there and you have an iframe loading our game. What I did is window open in JavaScript, which doesn't work on the phone. What it does is take the content there and push it inside the app. From there I was able to code script outside of the app and interact with the phone directly. That created other security issues. I was still able to do it, but that created other issues, so we went another web. Plus, when I contacted one of the people at Microsoft telling, I found a way, but I'm a bit, pushing code inside the phone and changing your data, they're like, maybe we won't go that road, maybe you should find another solution. I'm like, okay, we should fix that by the way. They're like, yeah, we're gonna. So that's something to know. Your libraries, you can put jQuery. There is a version I found on GitHub. A lot of aspects of jQuery are not going to work. Like you can use all the visual effects, but everything that's content related, it's going to break at some point or another. That's the new security. You're going to have to work around it. It's not that tough. It's just different from what you used to, and it takes a lot of figuring what's up, especially when you get to the phone. Windows 8 is not that bad, but the phone you have to figure out a lot of things. So yeah, this is the best example I could find on internet of, it's not a tight security, but when you look at it, you're like, what's going on? Metascaling. Like I said, the viewport doesn't work because it's not W3C. They want to use the W3C version, which means the metascaling doesn't work. Initial scale and max scale are not supported. If you have a site which you shrink usually to make it show properly on different font size, that won't work. You actually need to code the proper CSS. There is no, you can't trick anything. There is no easy way out anymore. They are using the proper way, which is not quite ready for everybody, because that's blocking a lot of sites, but someone has to push it other than Opera at some point. So now the phone. The last thing. I have one here. Okay. That's a Windows phone. Now, what would you say the resolution on that is? 1280 by 720. That's the screen resolution. The app resolution is 480 by 853. Okay. There is a scale resolution and a resolution on the phone, which means the app is displayed at the scale resolution, the content in your iframe is at the screen resolution and zoom. When you create your CSS, you have to be aware of that. You have to be aware that everything is going to be scaled on two different aspects. The app is going to be completely different. You're going to see one thing. If you put it on the web, you're going to see something else completely different. The game that we run on the phone, when you look at them on the website, you have one element here, the next element way over there. On the phone, they're next to each other. That was a very big challenge because the phone is not HTML5 friendly. It can do it, but it's not friendly to it. It's going to take you and swing you all over the place and be like, no, I want that element over there, no, I want that element over there. After a while, we figure how to scale everything, manage everything. And the way we placed everything is basically by me looking at the phone and be like, I think we need another 10 pixels, 10. I think we need one more, 11, 12, 13. We went up to 167 pixels. So that takes some use to. So this is for the phone. If you do HTML, if you port anything, be aware of that. Because the first time we put the game, basically we have chess games. The first piece was big like that. Just the first square of the board. And I'm like, this is not going to fit on the phone. It took me a while to figure out why. And on MSDN they explained, everything go on MSDN. They're going to show you the 3 resolution, which is actually 6 resolution, 1 that doesn't exist in reality because they don't support it, and 2 that are the current resolution. It's very not confusing. Okay? So we did 100 games. We ported 100 games on Windows 8 and 100 games hopefully on the phone. They are entering certification right now. I had issue with the back button on certification because I forgot to kill a link, so it's going somewhere, and the back button doesn't do what it's supposed to.
And how long did you guys take to do that? You started this when?
3 months? 3 months.
We started development February 11th.
Yeah.
And we finished development second week of May.
Yeah.
So about 3 months, about 100 days.
And literally starting from, I need to install Windows 8.
Yeah, that was my entire dev process.
And let's read MSDN because we don't know how to do Windows 8
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, they had 100 games. They were ported. They weren't creating from scratch.
Actually,
Right, let's be clear. But
there is Wi-Fi here.
yeah, there's Wi-Fi. There's the keys right there. Network, this one
Uh-huh.
you're telling me?
Okay, I'm going to
Yeah,
show
yeah,
you
we'll
this.
bring up a game, yeah.
Yeah.
Damn it.
And they were built, the original games were built with HTML5.
Yeah, the original games were built in HTML5 JavaScript on, and we had it running on a server. We have 142 games, so we had plenty to choose from, basically. And we had to deal with about 30 different licenses, because not all of them were public domain or ours. So we had to deal with the owners of some of those games that we carried, that kind of thing. That I'm the one doing that. He was busy bashing his
He
head.
deals with the back buttons and the, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it took us about 5-6 weeks to create a shell, because you don't do ground up for every game for 100 times, unless you have 1,000 monkeys. You don't have.
It was me and one guy.
Yeah, 2 developers. And as we created the shell, that worked, went through the first game through certification, and then used the same, just pumped out some artwork, and used the same,
Yeah, there you go.
there is, it's,
100
that's our games, there you go.
That, yeah.
Took us a while.
Yes. Some are more functional than others, some are coming from Eastern Europe, and honestly I look at the game and I'm like, I don't know how to play that even though when I read the rules. They're all board games, but they're all different. Like obviously chess and checkers, you can imagine them, but quel board est vraiment Talpa?
Which one, were you looking for something cool? Or a good art?
Something weird.
Something weird. Turgus Kumak. It's Kazakhstan's national game.
Okay.
It's actually very, it's
Once you know
the
what
game that's most played on our development platform. Because they don't have any other way to play it online except on our site. So they discover it. So we have people just speaking gibberish in the chat because it's Kazakh. I don't know, but they speak to themselves, to each other in Kazakh. There it is.
I'm going to show you just to give you an idea that we go from chess to...
It's a little bit of a weird game. If they have yet to discover it. That was that last one that got certified about a week ago. It was a bit of a pain.
This is the board for the game. So obviously not a square. So I have no idea how this works. But you can
You just write the code, you don't have to.
yeah, I know the logic, but basically you can imagine that on the phone it can get very complex to put all the, because everything you see there has to be on the phone. By the way, this is an ad using the SDK. So yes, it works, except they're not filling like the request. There is too many games coming out with too many demand for placement.
We're seeing about, sorry to interrupt that, we're seeing about a 35 to 40% fill rate. And because it's a new, new OS,
And you're getting a bit of a crush right now.
Exactly, and there's much reach, but so that's going to increase, but it works.
How do you put the snap view?
And it does get filled.
Now, snap view is not going to work because you're on a projector. It doesn't support it.
Ah!
Now, if you have any source code of Visual Studio, you can launch. Actually, what you can do is if you have Visual Studio, you can launch a simulator.
No, I can't.
Okay.
And that's what I was explaining.
Yeah, so you'll just have to describe snap view. Because
Yeah.
what did you guys decide to do with snap view? Because that's always an interesting situation.
But I could go.
I could bring it up on the tablet.
I'm gonna go Lion King way.
Here, I'll bring up the tablet and we can just sort of pop it on there. So we can do this.
Okay.
Just on here.
Still not used to Windows 8 as you can see.
Which game do you want to download?
Any game.
All right, just
They all pass certifications, but they all work.
Yeah. I'd like to make sure this one's connected.
That's a Surface or Surface?
This is the RT. I have a Surface Pro, so here's one. This is the RT.
So it works on that too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. You guys work on the lower hardware as well.
We made the games work on any resolution you can find that is above 800 by 600. So basically, unless you're on a POS, which is a point of sale, that you're going to see the subway restaurant, it's going to work. Okay? Just making like that. The big and the nice thing about Windows 8 knowing CSS natively is like you can create one element in a div and just like place it anywhere you want. It's not like
Hotel Wi-Fi is being slow.
I can do that.
Yeah, do a little tap into it. Come on, wait. Find it in there.
Actually, Jordan can do a little capoeira, that's more interesting.
I can do rock climbing too.
You can climb the walls.
I need to learn how to do this. How do you create PowerPoint?
How do you quit PowerPoint?
Yeah, it's full screen.
Escape,
right click.
In Windows 8?
Aha!
Okay.
That I know.
I thought, usually it's
Okay, so
I can't get connected to the hotel Wi-Fi now. It's being difficult.
who's the big noob here? Me.
Yeah. So why don't you guys describe what you guys did? We'll try.
Actually, yeah, I'm just gonna.
Want to have a screenshot or something?
I'm gonna show you.
love your censored.
Hey, just because they're out of the playoffs doesn't change the fact that the Sens had a good year.
Okay. Snap view. There we go. Okay, so this is our snap view. Basically, the bottom square. The bottom square is the ad, and the top square is supposed to be when you're running the game, a message. Except we are looking at the whole game, so you don't have any option to see whether your opponent has played or not. If I was in my own game, I could see, that's a good way for people, for you, like the entire app works like that too. Except the ad's empty again. So you just have to be aware of that. You're going to pass certification even if you have empty squares in your app. That's not a problem. I'm not sure how they know that's supposed to be an ad and not some content that's failing, because I just don't, but apparently they do, so good for us. So if you have questions.
But the main reason I brought it here is it's nice to say you're on the other side of the equation. 3 months trying to port over 100 apps, you'll learn a lot along the way. So it was specifically 10 things we learned going through this experience is what we were sort of trying to share this afternoon. So yeah, at this point, feel free to ask questions, either Jordan if it's technical, or if you're curious about the business sort of aspect of things, Sylvain's here.
Yep.
Because really that's the end of, like, we're done giving you PowerPoint slides. We're done with that part of the day. That's over, so now it's just,
So you had all these technical issues, just porting over all the ones you described in your way. If we start with Windows development, are we going to run into the same sort of issues? Like, I thought it would be a little bit more seamless than the way you described it. I mean, you have 100 apps now, which is good, but I'm just saying like this.
The thing is, everything about Windows 8 is new. From the way they manage, the way you restart your computer, to the way everything is displayed, to the way the platform is. So you're gonna have not necessarily the same issue, not necessarily, you know, the same. I'm very good at breaking things. I've been known to break stuff that are not breakable. I mean, I was able to break one of the builders of Windows 8 and tell them why, you know. So and they're like, well, how did we miss that? I don't know, you know. So you shouldn't for me, if you're gonna have issues, it's just with the phone and the simulator. You're gonna have issue finding the right machine to run the simulator. No
That's all, yeah, on Windows Phone specifically. It is true that the hardware requirements for the Hyper-V simulator is a stopping point for a lot of phone developers. Now, having said that, if you got a physical phone, you can test it on the physical phone.
Yeah, that's what
we have.
we have the phone, we put it on, and we test. That's what I've been doing because the other developer, we have one machine. The machine was able to run the simulator, so we might have something with that. But for me, that's the main issue you're going to find is the simulator for the phone.
Yeah, because it's actually an emulator. It's actually a dynamically generated Hyper-V machine. So it does have some fairly heavy Hyper-V requirements for running it. My last laptop, I only just replaced my laptop a couple of weeks ago. My old one couldn't run it either.
And the issue, even, you really have to check online on the forum because that laptop in theory has the technology in it to run it, but it doesn't. So either because the CPU is not, you know, the right enough, not RAM, memory, and something. So
And were these ported from iOS or Android or just a whole bunch?
no, they were HTML.
HTML. Oh.
They were web games. Yeah.
I have a question not only for you but also for Microsoft people who are still here, which I guess is nice. So can you debug on RT, like the Windows Surface RT?
You can.
Because you can connect to the phone, sure. But can
You cannot
Surface
connect the Surface to that, but you can emulate an ARM device, which is what this is.
So you can't.
So you can, like I was saying, you cannot debug. Like let's say you cannot install extra tools like you would do on your development
Well, I
machine
know
on
that
the
you can't
Surface.
install that on it, but like you debug on
Yeah.
phone, so you can't debug on the Surface RT.
Not the same way you debug on a phone.
You can't install Visual Studio on an RT.
Well, no, I don't want to install it on the. I want to be running on my x86
You mean
or
like-
whatever, and then
like
connect to
remotely?
the
No.
Surface RT the same way I would to
No,
the
you
phone.
have to transfer the file manually and install the app.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not the best way to do it, but the thing is, we only did it, I think, we only tested on the Surface itself 3 or 4 times to make sure the layout worked properly and everything worked. For the rest, we use the simulator. Because the simulator works everywhere for the ARM device, just for the phone. The phone simulator, that's hard. The ARM device or any other kind of Windows 8 simulator works.
Oh, okay.
You won't
Interesting. So it's just the phone that's going to give you.
Yeah, the phone simulator is the one part that.
Yeah, Windows 8 actually uses a simulator to simulate Windows 8 apps running, whereas Windows Phone actually uses an emulator.
Okay.
And that's where the Hyper-V requirement comes in. So it's the Windows 8 simulator operates a bit differently, so you don't have these hardware requirements for
So it's not an issue for the Surface.
Okay, perfect.
Anything else? HTML for the win.
Yeah, and Cydia games, if you want to download and try any games, you can see there's just a few of them in the store. And all right, in that case, thanks so much, guys. Much appreciated.